So in this video, I'm going to dismantle this mountain bike. I get them off of Craigslist, usually for free. Occasionally I'll find one I buy. I dismantle the bikes, true the wheels up, grease everything, clean everything, and then reassemble it. And if there's any parts I need to buy, I get them off either Amazon, at a local bike store, or sometimes I go down to a place called Second Cycle in Tacoma. At this point right here, you can see I've just taken off the front wheel and I'm now dismantling the front brakes. At this point, I'm speeding everything up because the video is a little bit too much on the long side for this dismantling. I've at this point I've taken off the front brakes. I'm going to start taking off the back brakes and the wheel. Got to get some stuff out of my way. So anyway, the back brakes are the same as the front. It's V brakes. You take the wheel loose with a little throw lever. It drops right out. Now I'm looking for tools because I got everything in the way down here, and typical, I move something out of the way for some other project and then make it in the way for a different project. Anyway, I'm taking off the rear derailleur. I'm going to cut the chain is what I'm doing right now. I'm using a chain brake to pop the pin out and break the chain in half so I can get the chain off. So when I get these bikes off Craigslist, one of the first things I do is go online, and there's several sites where you can go to check for serial numbers to see if the serial number of the bike you have is stolen. I like to do this first to make sure I'm not rebuilding somebody's stolen bike. Right here I think I'm working on getting the derailleur off the front. The derailleur is the part that makes it shift between gears in the front. Now I'm taking off the rear derailleur, sitting it on the bench. I'm going to start taking the brakes off the back. After I get the brakes off, the only things left to take off is the cranks, the pedals, and the front fork, and obviously the seat, which right now has a pedal lock wrapped around it that I can't get loose, and I don't know if I have anything to cut it, because it is a actual cable type lock, and usually you have to have like a grinder or something with a cutoff wheel to get through those. I'm not positive on this one. I have been trying to get it unlocked, that way I could just, sell the bike and give somebody a lock so they can lock their bike up, but that doesn't always work out. I apparently lost a part that I needed on my grease rags that are sitting below the bike. I have those grease rags down there for picking up anything I used, like when I'm using simple green to wash the bike frame. It obviously drips, and those pads like to absorb water, so it's a lot easier to throw a bunch of old shirts or towels or whatnot down on the floor, and then when they're all just really bad off, I can just throw them in the garbage. So right now I'm trying to get the handle grips off, and I'm taking the shift or brake levers loose so I can push them out of the way, but they're giving me a little bit of a problem here because of the angle of the Allen heads. So I get them loose and I push them back towards the center of the handlebars, and then I can start working on getting the handle grips off. The easiest way to get the handle grips off is use an air compressor if you have caps on the ends that are capped completely. But what I end up doing on this one is I put a screwdriver down in there and I just poured some alcohol down there, rubbing alcohol, and you wiggle it around and you squish it around and it'll go down, and then as you work it down it'll actually slide right off like that. So then I wipe that off and I can grab my screwdriver that I just misplaced. Where did I put it? And I found it. I stuff it in the other side, throw a little alcohol down there, pull the screwdriver around out, and then start working on this handle, and pops right off. Now at this point, I can stand in front of the way so the camera can't see me, and then I take the brake lever, shift lever off, which are a combination one on this one. And I left the one on the other side. I don't know why. Should have taken that off too. I will in a minute, I'm sure, because it's laying on my bench right now. And I don't know why. So now here I am working on getting the handlebars off. It's got an Allen head in the middle of the gooseneck. And this one's got a gooseneck. It doesn't have a stem. Well, I guess it's called a stem. Gooseneck is an old phrase for it. And I get that bolt. It's an Allen head. Get that one loosened up, which is really, really tight, as you can tell. Got the other brake lever off. Still trying to break loose there we got it loose. We got it loose. So anyway, at this point, I got to smack it down to get the wedge loose. And then we have to, because it really was stuck in there, I had to use a hammer to get the handlebars to come out. And they're out now, so now I have to grab my giant crescent wrench, which is somewhere in this toolbox. Correction, I'm grabbing the pedal wrench so that we can take the pedals off. So I have to brace the other side so that it can come loose. And then I got to figure out which way it turns, because one of them is backwards of the other. Apparently this one is the correct direction, and the other one is backwards. Now we got to brace the other side and stand in the way so you can't see what I'm doing. I really need a tripod at this point. I didn't have one. I found one since this, and obviously while I'm putting this back together, it will be a little more visible. I apologize in advance. So now that we have the pedals off, we have to get the crank arms off. And to do that, it's another wrench. But right now I'm going to go to the, down there's my crescent wrench. And we take that loose, and we get the washer off the top, and then we get the bearing race off. And we forget the bearing that's in the bottom. It's still in the bottom of the race on the head tube. And we'll get to it in a minute. You'll see me pick the forks back up and put it back on there so I don't lose track of it. But at this point in time, I'm still trying to figure out where my tools are to take off the crank arms. And there's the bolt coming out from the one side, and there's the bolt coming from the other side. Now I have to get the removal tool. It's like a bearing puller, but it's made for the crank arm. It's a crank arm puller, obviously. At this point, I'm screwing in the crank arm puller, and you just spin the outer lever out, and off comes the crank. And then you take the tool off, go to the other side, which I'm going to flip the bike frame around, make it a little easier on myself. Should have done that for the pedals too. Same thing, you spin it in there, you spin the other part in, and off comes the crank arm. Put the tool back so we don't lose it. Then we have to find the tool that goes and takes the bottom bracket out, because I want to do all this and grease it. So I get the tool, get the hammer, because I have to beat on this thing to get it loose. And it comes loose just like that. And we pull that out, we pull the bottom bracket out. There's a little plastic cup in there. It's supposed to keep it from rusting. It keeps the grease in there. But this thing is absolutely dry of grease. There was absolutely no grease on it at all. It's like they never greased it from the factory. You can see the dust fell out of there from the rust. So it's not damaged, luckily. I mean, I checked it all out and it was pretty good. I'll clean it up and make sure. But the other cup will not come off. And this is when I finally got the last of the parts off of it, other than the seat, and then I found the bearing was still up in the cap up there after I took this last little piece off. And that's the part that I have to go back and put back on the fork so I don't lose track of it. Yeah, that one. So anyway, this is pretty much the end of the first video. This is just dismantling the bike. I will not bore you with me cleaning all the parts, and when I get back to putting it back together, I will film more. If you like this video, please click the subscribe button and the like button, and That way you can follow me along with the rest of this adventure and other adventures I do in my woodworking shop. Thanks for watching.